All right, everyone. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Aware Athlete Show. As always, on this show, we're not concerned with ribbons and medals and trophies, but we're concerned with the invisible trophies, the invisible rewards, the reasons that we do what we do, the things that will last a lifetime. So, having said that, our guest today is Kristen Schulz, and she is first a runner in her life. Then afterwards, she became a PT, and she's an entrepreneur, a coach, and a coach of coaches. So welcome to the show, Kristen.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. That was a perfect introduction too. You covered it all.
Okay, so let's go back, way back, and let's start with where you became interested in running.
Yeah, so I started running in high school my freshman year because I needed a sport, honestly, because I played basketball, soccer, and softball, and both soccer and softball were in the spring. So I was like, shoot, what am I going to do in the fall? And so decided to run, really just as a way to stay in shape for basketball for the winter season. But ended up running. I ended up doing track. And I dropped softball, even though that was like my love. It still is like what I did. Could have went on and play in college, and ended up running track for a variety of reasons. One being that I thought I wanted to go ahead and do it in college. But yeah, so I started there, and then I went and ran in college, maybe getting ahead of myself, but that's where it started and why it started. It was just a way to stay in shape, and I needed a sport.
So you were involved in so many activities as a kid growing up.
Yes.
Different from me. Unfortunately, I was not involved in too many activities and caught on later.
Okay, yeah. No, I know there's like the two different backgrounds for runners a lot of times, and like I definitely have like it was the athletic background. It wasn't like I was just like started running. It was just
Yeah.
I never intended to be a runner.
Yeah. Well, that's very cool. And what events did you run in high school and in college?
Yeah, I did. I really always focused on like the mile or 1500, depending on, what season it was, or high school or college. That was my main focus. In college, I also did the steeplechase, which was really cool and probably my favorite event, honestly. But yeah, 1500 mile steeplechase, and then really I did the mile and 4x8 in high school. So
Yeah. So the mile is a pretty tough race.
yeah. I like it though. It's like a perfect, well, it gets harder when you get older, let me tell you, but it's that perfect mix of it's still distance, but you get to sprint. So I like it.
So we won't go into this right now, I don't think, but you have a podcast called Breaking Five.
Yes.
That's related to your mile. You still love the mile run.
Yes, it was related to a mile goal. I got back into track. I'm 31 now. I was 30 back this winter track season. I jumped in college races, and with really just seeing where I could. The first year was definitely not to try to go under 5, but just like let's get back into it. Maybe try to get back to where I was, and then potentially with the long-term goal of trying to say, hey, I never met this like kind of crazy goal like that time mark of 5 minutes. Could I do that still? And if I can, I better do it soon, because we know that speed starts to go as we get a little older.
That's true. The older you get, the more consistent you have to be in your training. You can't afford to take a year off.
Yes.
So, all right. So along the way, so now you're running, but you're running in college. So you have to have a major. And
yes.
What made you get interested in physical therapy?
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I thought I had to have my whole life figured out, right? So I was like, all right, I'm a junior. Like, I need to know what I want to do with my life. Like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that thought process. But that was my thought process. So I was like trying to figure out what I want to do. And I was like, oh, I kind of want to do something like with sports, medical, but I don't want to be an athletic trainer because I want normal hours, which is really ironic now to where my life is so many things that you think you want and then do like the opposite. But then I was like physical therapy. I don't remember how. I think my mom maybe brought it up, and I was like, yeah, that sounds perfect. Like that would be cool. And I went and shadowed. I was like, yeah, this is cool. Like, all right, that's what I'm doing. And then it was just like, I'm doing physical therapy. And then ever since then, that was what I was going to do.
Yeah. So you're a doctor of physical therapy.
Yes.
And that was what, 6.5 years?
Yeah, a total of like 7 years, 4 years undergrad and 3 years. Yeah, I guess it was like 2 years and 8 months. So yeah, 6.5 basically, 6.5 to 7.
That's a big chunk of your life.
It is.
So what was going on with you? You can't run track in college for 7 years. So but you could do it in your undergraduate time. And
Yes.
so that's a long, long period of time, long chunk out of your life. What was going on with you during that period? What was your response to the things that you were learning or required to do to get that degree? Uh, what was the experience like? How did it feel?
Yeah, I feel like, so for me, like undergrad to me wasn't really that hard, it was just, I mean, I feel like undergrad experience, like I joked, but it's honestly kind of true. I was like, I'm here to run. Like
Yeah,
that's not, I don't think people would think that. Like, I mean, I was like straight A, like not that that's the best way, but I was like student, like whatever. So I think people thought like I was really into my studies, but I honestly, I was there to run. Like that was my favorite part. Like I just did the work because I needed to get to PT school. And then grad school was more challenging. That's like the first time you start to get challenged. You're like, okay, like, I actually need to like really understand this stuff to get by. And it was challenging, but I still don't, to me, the school experience, and it's probably just how my brain works, whatever, like wasn't as challenging as when I got to being a full-time clinician. That was more challenging for me for sure, than school ever was really.
so you have several internships when you were studying PT. Did you have three,
Yep,
four?
yep.
How many did you have?
I had two technically only. That's not common. We had like a different system the year I was there, where we went somewhere for like an entire year, and really got integrated there, and it was a really good opportunity actually. But so I just actually had two.
Yeah. Okay. So you had someplace where you went for an entire year, and that was
Yeah,
your second internship or your first?
that was my second. So I went. So for 6 weeks, I went to a skilled nursing facility, Gleason Care Center. Oh, good. I don't know how I remember all these names. Out in Portland, Oregon. So I got to travel there. That was really cool. I loved being out in Portland. Made some good running friends out there for only being out there for 6 weeks. I felt like I got honestly pretty integrated in the community in just 6 weeks. And then it was 11 months that I went to an Air Force base, actually, in Biloxi, Mississippi, Keesler Air Force Base, in their outpatient clinic there, and had an internship there. That was my second one. So
Yeah. So you were 6 weeks in Portland. I'm in Oregon right now. I'm on the east side of the Cascades in Central Oregon.
okay, and so okay, yeah, that's where I was. So
Yeah. Oh, that's where you were. You were in Portland though. That's on the west side.
oh yeah, sorry. I mean, I was that's where I was as far as like in Oregon. Sorry.
You should have been in Eugene.
I know I never went there either. Ugh, I have so much to explore still.
Next on USA. Yeah. It really is. You can see some amazing athletes just working out. Just you just take a walk there and you can see that.
Yep.
I was actually there for when they had the Olympic trials one year.
Okay, that would be super cool.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
So, how did you get in? Feel that you were integrated into the community there in Portland in only 6 weeks? What did that mean?
Yeah, well, so and I think it's funny because I've had like my past two moves, it's taken me like a couple. Well, right now I'm on like half a year of being in Florida, and I'm just starting to feel like I'm integrating. And then when I was in North Dakota, it took me at least a year to get integrated. So I think it's funny, like I don't know, but I just had to throw that in there. But one of the reasons is because I roomed with a runner. It was yeah. I found through Portland Running Company. So, man, little Kristen was fearless. I was just like, I like sent out emails to a number of like running companies, like looking just random, like, hey, I'm gonna be here 6 weeks, just wondering if anyone like has a place to stay, looking for a place to stay. And then one couple let me stay with them, and we clicked really well. They're really awesome. And yeah, my roommate, the girl roommate that I communicated with and everything, she's a really good runner. She's OTQ'd before, and so she was connected in the running community. So then naturally, I mean, and really it was my doing too, though. Like I showed up at like group runs. I like ran, like I was about a mile from, what's the forest there that's really popular?
Forest Hill.
Forest.
Anyway, that's a 31-mile trail on a ridge through Portland.
Yeah, like I ran into people I knew on there sometimes because I like went to some group runs, and then I'd run into them. I was like, hey, I know you guys. So, but I lived like a mile, I think it was from there. Maybe it was 2 miles. So like I could run or bike over there and go on the trails there. So
Well, that's really amazing. Where was the school? What state was the school you attended for PT?
Yeah, Utah. I was in Utah.
Utah, and they sent you clear out to Oregon.
Yeah, yeah. And I like have a little bit of an adventurous soul, not even a little bit. So I wanted to, like, I took advantage of my clinicals as a way to go explore the world kind of. So I was like, oh,
Yeah,
cool, let's go to Portland
yeah, yeah. I didn't have to travel quite that far for
for yours.
yeah, but 6 weeks, and you were in a skilled nursing facility, and then you went to an Air Force facility. So
Yep,
for one thing, that's a little different approach, like you say, than a lot of schools use. However,
yep,
that year-long internship, if you could fit into that, your first day on the PT job
right.
officially was probably a lot easier than
Oh
mine.
yeah. Oh yeah. Like I mean, that was kind of part of the idea. So my internship was like, the idea was like, oh, it takes, I think, there's some research or something that like 10 weeks to get integrated somewhere. So if we're leaving every 10 weeks, we're not really learning or whatnot. So, I mean, I don't remember how long until I was full time. I mean, maybe about half the time there, I wasn't seeing a full load, but then we were like full time workers, but it was like an integrative experience in the sense of I didn't work full time. We had like lab sessions. We had like half a day, one day was reviewing like journal articles. Half a day, one day was doing a lab session. I got to go into their like family care practice for a couple hours a day and do like primary, whatever they call it, primary care screening. I'm probably calling it not the right thing, but so seeing like acute things. So that was kind of cool. And then there was a hospital there. I didn't actually do a lot of hours there, but because I had my inpatient hours, but some people did that too. So it was a really cool group too that I was involved with there, and definitely learned a lot. It was a hard year. It felt like a residency, I will say for sure. So
So the first clinical that you had for 6 weeks, that was your first time out of the program,
yes,
stepping into a job situation.
yes.
Talk about that big change in environment from classroom to working.
Yeah. Well, honestly, my first one wasn't as challenging. It was definitely the one where I was at the Air Force Base that was challenging for me because the first one was I only had to get to like 50% productivity. So that was fine. Like the most challenging part was like the sniff part. I didn't really feel like I had much experience with that level of patients before. It wasn't like the athletic population, obviously. So I feel like for me, that was probably the hardest part. Is just like understanding where they're at because I've never been in that situation. Now I just recently spent some time on crutches, so I can maybe kind of relate a little bit better now. But um, but so it wasn't super. That part wasn't super challenging for me. It was my second clinical that just time management and learning to communicate with patients, what's going on with them, and using my own critical reasoning skills and being confident in what I'm telling them, even though I know like I don't know everything. I'm just still a student. That's when it got challenging for me, was that second rotation for sure.
Yeah. So you were under supervision quite a bit that year.
Yeah, the first year, like that first clinical, I was like with Diana, she all the time, and like she was right there, and I got to watch her treat half the time, me half, so it was that wasn't that didn't feel as stressful that first 6 months or weeks, that first rotation.
Yeah, our first I was a PTA, not a PT, so we had to be 90%
Yeah,
efficient. So that's a big deal, time management stuff.
yeah,
For me, I was always looking at my watch, seeing where I'm at.
yeah. I guess that I do remember from because they had a pretty high productivity standard, so I remember that part being hard. Like we're supposed to like or like different. You're like, oh, I'm supposed to like finish this patient and get this paperwork done all in this time and go home hopefully on time. Like I do remember that being like, oh man, this is a little bit challenging.
Yeah. So, and your second one was it mainly outpatient?
Yeah, it was outpatient at military base. So, and we had a lot of like you get all over the spectrum, but the military base I was at was a big training facility. So we did get a number of people that were like just coming out of boot camp, and had like some overuse injuries that way. But of course we had the whole you could see their family and stuff too. So it wasn't just every one of them in the military, but that was a really cool experience.
Yeah. So you went from that, you
Yes.
graduated, and you went to your first day of real official work. Uh,
Yes.
and then, where did you work, and how long did that last?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of different things. So I did I did what I did, and honestly, my internship was so awesome, but I felt kind of I thought I was gonna go right into residency, to be honest. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go to residency, and then I was just like, I need a break. So I went and did travel PT for a little bit, and I like to explore. I've kind of shared that. Kind of get a little sick of it once you get older, but so I went to South Carolina and took a home health job. I actually had no experience in home health at the time, but they needed someone, and they were willing to train me for a month in home health. So I took a home health job in Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah. So that's one of those jobs where I guess you kind of plan your schedule, but it can be maybe somebody's not home when they're supposed to be, or you do a lot of driving around, and you get paid more per hour, but it's
Yep.
those do it actually that actually would form a good basis for being an entrepreneur in a way. So
Yes, no, for sure. Like I think of that a lot, and I do tell people, and I know entrepreneurs that do that, as far as like if you need a side job while you're building your business up, that is definitely, that could be a good way, because it's very flexible. It has its pros and cons, and the pros can be cons too. Like, oh, it's flexible. Oh, that's also not great, because like for me, when I did home health, I would start my day at 10. So, and I would do like some notes in the morning, but then I wouldn't go see my patients till 10, which is cool. You can do it that way. But also, like, I wouldn't be getting done till like 6, 6, 7 at night by the time I was driving home. So, like, from someone who naturally, like, will sleep in if they can, like, wasn't maybe the best, like, there's the pro con there too. You have to be good at managing your time. Like, okay, Kristen, we're seeing our first patient at 8, not 10.
yeah, and your schedule is not quite as set as if you worked in a facility where you've got to show up at sometime in the morning. You're going to get up at sometime in the afternoon with the kid
Yep.
overtime, but
Yep, exactly.
hard to adjust to that. But um, how long did you do traveling PT, and then did you settle into a job somewhere?
Yeah, I did traveling PT for a year and a half, because I did a whole year. You can stay somewhere for a year. I stayed there for a year. Then I went to Michigan for 3 months, and then I went to North Dakota for 3 months. A guy I was dating at the time moved to North Dakota, so that's why I moved to North Dakota. And then I took a permanent job once I got to North Dakota. When I was in North Dakota, I took signed a 2-year contract, which was scary to me. I was like, oh my gosh, and I did outpatient 3 days a week at a clinic at a hospital-based clinic, and then 2 days a week. Actually, at first it was all outpatient. I split clinics, and then it switched midway through, and I was at a transitional care unit the other 2 days. So still, like, I guess I've always done a lot of different things. It's never just been one thing, and I know from like bosses and stuff, they've always been like thankful for my flexibility. So I guess maybe that's a strength. I'm like, yeah, cool, put me wherever, that's fine. Like, cool, that works. I like to change it up. I don't like to do the same thing every day. It gets boring. So
Yeah. So actually, when you change all the time, there's always these little details that you don't know. But
yes.
like when you're traveling PT, they don't really expect you to know them all.
Right. I mean, that was maybe this is going off topic a little bit, but like, say like the meetings you have to go to for your standard, you're working somewhere. It was kind of like, oh, the travelers, like, yeah, we'd be invited, but like, we didn't have to worry about things. Like, oh, you guys don't need to know that. In a way, kind of cool. I don't have to deal with like some of the BS stuff. Like, I could just show up and work. So, but yeah, no, it's good to be like, if you like what you're doing, like, stay in the place to really develop yourself, right? In what you're doing, like, there's obviously a lot of benefits to that.
Okay, so uh, bringing this to what people might be interested in, I'd like
Yes.
to know your overall experience and your emotional experience, your experience with learning. What was your overall experience after you signed that 2-year contract, and how did you like settling in to the PT environment, which involves a lot of time management and moving from one patient to another, and not necessarily spending the time you want with the patient, but the time that you're kind of
Yeah, you have to spend. Yeah, no, I didn't like it at all, if you can guess. From
that's
I
get
oh,
into
go ahead.
background to see where we're going with it. So go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, a couple things. Like, there's a couple things to that. Like, for one, I just remember feeling like I don't really feel like I can give the patients what they need. I didn't have a horrible situation in the sense of, like, we did get like, I could do 45-minute treats, which was nice, compared to some clinics like 30 treats, like 45 eval. had an hour for my eval, stuff like that. But I just didn't feel like, from the healthcare perspective in general, like what, like we're really getting them better. Like even if we're getting them better, like there's more we can be doing. Like can we write them? Like can we keep working with them? Like they need a fitness plan now that we got them over their injury, like to keep them coming back, like from a whole holistic, viewpoint. I didn't like that. I really felt like I could treat them that way. Honestly, for me, like it wasn't, the type of patients I was seeing weren't that exciting. It was very general population. I've learned that I need to be working with motivated, active people. Like it's just like a whole different mindset of people. And I used to feel bad about that, like feeling like, oh my gosh, I hate working with these people. Like I shouldn't say hate, like I love all my patients, but just like not motivating to show up, like 1 in 20 might be a patient that's like fun to work with and motivated. Everyone else doesn't even want to be there. So like from a personal level, there was that. I kind of purposely kept myself stuck there for 2 years, which was challenging on a whole nother level, for that sign-on bonus, honestly. I would have left. I did think I was maybe going to leave. I was going to take a sports residency, and the one I applied to I didn't get into, and so I stayed. But staying somewhere where I felt stuck on so many ways, like in the sense of this isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life. This isn't where I want to live. There were so many levels that was very, I didn't realize how much I was going to dig myself into the ground and have to come back out of that. But it was challenging, but I learned a lot from it. So,
Yeah. So,
and I've switched what I do because of it.
Yeah. So now we're getting into something where I think you probably got benefit from having to stay there 2 years because you got to know yourself a little bit better.
Yes.
What you really did want to do. And so,
yes.
A lot of times the biggest lesson in life is that we have to accept our circumstances or we have to submit to them. But we can also come to the place where there's an opportunity to change them too.
Yes, exactly.
So talk a little bit about what was going on inside of you. You just did that. But in terms of how you were actually going to make a transition after that 2 years. Then.
Yeah, so during that time, a couple things going on. One, I was like, man, I kind of had said this before this. I was like, I kind of think I'd like to do like, like cash-based physical therapy. Like I hate that, like forget insurance. Like, why do we even need this thing? Like we can't treat patients like we need to. Like I just feel like maybe one day I'll have this clinic and maybe I'll just like, treat runners and do how I want to, and I can coach them too, and I can, strength coach them, like preventative side of things, right? And I remember at that time when I would say to people, like people kind of be like, okay, cool. Like, I mean, the people I was around didn't really like see that, which is cool because now I know a ton of people that do that kind of thing. But also during that time, I started doing some online health coaching, very vague, generalized health coaching, from 2 places, like, oh, I want to help people with their health. And then also being online was kind of intriguing to me in the sense of, hey, I could live wherever I want. I don't have to feel stuck in one place per se. So that started to come about during that time. But then, so once once I was actually done, the goal was to go all online and do like just health coaching. I didn't have a clear plan necessarily. But is it okay if I'm going into this of where it went? Is that cool?
Yes, I think it's really important because it's part of your evolution towards where you are now as an entrepreneur. You started out because you just knew you were following a general direction, and then that evolved.
Yeah.
And you were actually learning from that. It's kind of a foundation for you to start with. Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, and just feeling so stuck. And I guess it was a time too when I realized, I think I always had this, I don't know if it's naive, but like when you're younger, you're like, oh, I'm gonna love what I do one day, like, and gonna go after big goals. And then I get to the real world per se, 9-to-5 job, and I was like, this is really boring. Everyone I work with seems to like hate their job and their life. Like that's a little extreme, but like honestly, I was just like, they don't like have time for their kids. Like, shoot, I do not want that life. Okay, let's do something else. So yeah, back to like where I started heading, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go online, like cool, health coaching. It evolved. I started working with a mentor, and got involved in like a mentorship group, which then it went into a mastermind to start, learning the entrepreneur side of things. definitely realized how hard it is to do your own thing. It is not just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and do this. And like, oh, it's hard. It's still hard. I still feel like I'm just starting off. And this is like, I literally have had this for 5 years knowing I want to do my own thing. So anyways, but it evolved into, hey, I like to work with runners. Maybe I'll do like run coaching, nutrition, strength coaching online or something like that, which evolved into like run coaching, helping runners online, and starting my own cash-based practice. So I was up in North Dakota at the time, and I started a cash-based practice, which also required me to not have a job, because the only job opportunity I had in the small town I was in was one hospital system. And if I was going to start my own thing, I couldn't work for them for conflict of interest. Like, so that was scary, for sure. But I did cash-based physical therapy, treating runners. I had like one patient that wasn't technically a runner, but all of them were runners. I was very integrated into the running community there. So that wasn't like terribly hard. But I also was doing run coaching as well as seeing people in person for physical therapy. So it evolved into that. There was a time period, I should add too, right after I quit my full-time job, I did go back to travel physical therapy for about 9 months while I was like figuring things out, and I thought the travel physical therapy was what was going to support me while I built my business. Turned out for me, all the change was really hard to manage that and a business. So I feel like, I just throw that in there for anyone listening, I feel like the better option would have been, and what I ended up doing was like PRN and build your business. So that's what I actually did for a little bit, PRN plus build my business. But then once it came to, hey, I want to do in person, I had to drop my PRN because of the conflict of interest. So then dropped PRN. Oh my goodness, I'm going all in, probably a little sooner than I should have financially, but hey, whatever, like going. And it's evolved since then too. So, and I can go into that.
Some of our people listening might not know what PRN is, but it's just
yes,
as needed.
Yes, it's
yeah.
It's as needed at like a hospital, and like, part-time kind of like some hours, but you're not full-time usually.
And it is a particular opportunity in the healthcare field.
Yes.
Lots of need for PRN.
Yeah, we should be thankful as, healthcare workers in the entrepreneur world that we do have options like that. Like, not everyone that's an entrepreneur has certain opportunities like that, I guess, to kind of.
Yeah. So a little comment on our society there. A lot of people do hate their jobs.
Yes.
But not everyone. I know someone who's finished 40 years of service and at a particular job and thinks that was really for him and
that's awesome.
his family. He was happy doing that.
Yeah.
I've had, I think the most unhappy I've ever been in my life was at a job that I was requiring so many hours that it robbed me of all creativity and the things that I really do in my life.
Yeah.
And that was one of the most painful experiences that I've had. But it wouldn't be for everybody at that point.
Yes.
But it was for me.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, our society is so oriented towards productivity.
Yes.
Especially things.
Yes.
And money and so on.
Yep.
So oriented towards that sometimes people come second.
Yes.
But on the other hand, I did have a job at a skilled nursing facility for a number of years that I did realize was because of the team camaraderie and everything involved with the people I was working with in the general support environment, it was actually the best job I ever had.
Yeah. No.
However, but the important point is, what do you need to do to express yourself as a person? And that's the journey that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. That's what we really want to take a look at here. So you went through all these stages. You went through them so fast.
Yes.
You looked, they began to define what you really love, which you already knew you loved running.
Yes, yes.
But it wasn't as clear to you. Oh, cash-based practice too. That's risky. You were putting yourself out there,
Yep.
You make a living.
Yep.
And, I have actually appreciated some physical therapists that did cash-based.
Yeah.
They really spend a lot more time with you than being in a system where you have to be, as a PTA, 90% or more effective, which means that you're not doing anything but making
Right.
you're not doing
Yes.
this, or they get
Yeah.
integrated into treatment, whatever.
It's kind of a joke almost thinking about it. Not a joke, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know, like it's weird to think about, like, yeah, like you were just saying how much it is just a business sometimes versus.
So first of all, what do you really have to do to express yourself fully as a person, and how do you evolve? So you've been through some of those steps, and
Yeah.
you really looked mentorship was important. Can you
Yes.
comment just on the importance of mentorship, since you don't want to totally reinvent the wheel every time you go out to do.
Yeah, no, exactly. I was just yeah, on another podcast too, and shared something to the effect of with mentorship in the sense of like, I think a lot of people think, oh, I have this great idea, I'm gonna go ahead and just like go do it, right? Well, a couple of things like that's great, but we don't know that it's gonna work necessarily, and there's so much to if there's if there's someone out there that's done what you've done, like go learn from them because they're gonna be able to teach you their mistakes so you can get there even faster, right?
Right.
But then also like business, not a lot of us are taught business, so we kind of need to. And I mean, I'm still like, I feel like I've been doing it for a little bit, but it's still like I have so much to learn. I know that, but it's so important to learn whatever it is, even if it's like the PT skills, whatever you need to learn. But if we go learn that from someone else and have that mentorship, they can help us, along the path a little faster than a lot faster than we can go ourselves, for sure.
Okay, so that involves a great quality that you've got there. It's just
Yes.
being able to go that direction, because a lot of people are held up because they're not humble enough to ask for help.
Yeah.
To know they
Yeah.
need to learn. So
Right.
learning is the deal.
Yep.
So one thing that I have appreciated about you a lot is a great quality, I think, is that you're so transparent.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not trying to be somebody who's a perfect runner and can coach you, and because mastery here's the thing that's so important. Mastery involves making all the mistakes you can make.
Yes.
Because
Oh my God.
I just made a mistake this morning, and then I realized, oh, the reason I didn't know that is because I never made that mistake before. Now I made that mistake.
Yeah.
Now I know I got to do this particular step.
Right. Right.
And so you can go along for quite a while, and you haven't made all the mistakes. You got another one to make here. And
Yep. I still got some more to make. I'll make one today, probably. Right.
the mistakes are where you really learn to get the fine details down. Because
Yep.
now
Yep.
you can do that again. I already tried that. But
Yep. Exactly.
I really appreciate your transparency. And currently,
Thank you.
so what you began to do online is, in fact, you were doing cash-based business. And
Yep.
before we get a little bit farther, talk about the struggles of doing that. Was it easy?
Yeah. I mean, so for cash-based business, like the struggles are one, like obviously, I'm doing this in a small town. I'm not from there. Like I've been there for 4 years at this point, right? So I started to integrate, but still, I'm just starting to get accepted into the community, right? It's a very like close-knit community. And then I'm going to do this thing called cash-based that like no one really is doing there. There is someone now, and she just started when I was there, but like probably haven't really heard of it up there. The challenge is one is just going to be like people haven't heard of it. They're going to question it, like, what is this? But it really isn't a challenge if you learn how to talk to people and essentially sell, for lack of a better word. Like you just got to learn how to talk to people and express the value in what they're getting. So that's a challenge. I mean, a challenge in like how to be your own business owner. Like that was really still at the beginning of figuring this all out. Like, oh my gosh, what I need. Learning how to, talk to people, how to set up your schedule, how to like, I guess going back, it's kind of nice to think like, because sometimes I still feel like I'm a beginner and I don't know what I'm doing. There's days where I'm like, oh wow, I do know, and I had to go
Actually,
through a lot back.
that's one of the things that I see is beautiful about you, is that you can be a beginner, but you're really taking us on a direction here, and sometimes people forget to be beginners.
Right, right.
Us as well as a sincere beginner.
Yes,
You know,
yes, yes,
and, so I say you're transparent. You're currently injured,
yes.
but you don't mind talking about it.
Yeah, no, not at all.
That's beautiful. It really
Yeah.
is. So,
So, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
as you went on to want your business to be more and more based online, you were not only coaching runners, you do that, you can write programs for them. You've got collegiate experience, you've got personal experience, you've got a lot of experience in that direction. But not only do you write programs, but you wanted to coach, I think, injured runners as well.
Yeah.
As well. Well, you are
Yeah.
a PT.
And here I am injured. Is that what you said?
No, you are a PT.
And I am a PT. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. And so talk about that. How do you, why do you want to coach injured runners, and how do you approach that?
Yeah, and I would say like majority of people aren't necessarily injured when I see them, but they've just, and there have been. It tends to be more people that just have struggled with injuries in the past. You know, like they've constantly found themselves injured, right? So that might look at like that just looks at looking at a number of things. Like a lot of times people just haven't even been following a plan. Okay, let's be honest. Like they just need someone to be looking at their training every week and look at that. B, it's going to be adding in strength training, and like C, and this should even maybe go higher, is like looking at their stress levels and what can they handle. Like I think that's something to look at in the sense of we have to know that stress is stress. Like my current injury, he alluded to that I'm injured. Like I know, like I was at my lowest training volume. Like I wasn't even doing speed work when I got injured. I know it had a lot to do with some stressors going on in my life. So we need to look at, you know, stressors in your life and what can you handle right now. Let's be realistic about it, and just know that the more we can keep you healthy and consistently training, the faster we get there. If we're doing amazing workouts and getting faster, but then we're injured for the next 3 months, like we're not getting anywhere. We'd rather go slow and steady and keep you injury free. And I feel like really that's my main goal with, you know, my runners and what I preach.
Yeah. So now we're getting into the area of personal awareness, self-awareness.
Yes.
Yeah. So as you know, awareness means being aware of your environment and the things that are going on within yourself, and that is a major key to injury avoidance and rehab, as you just mentioned a little bit. But so self-awareness is not the kind of thing where I want to be more self-aware, so now I know everything. It's
Yes. Yes.
I'm aware of today. I'm aware of this moment, and that you followed that process really in a pretty amazing way as you evolved towards being an entrepreneur. But then you also follow that in terms of well, you just mentioned emotional stress. A lot of people don't realize that stress,
Yeah.
physical and emotional and mental, will take a toll on your injury status. And it
Yeah,
really does.
for sure.
I mean, we're talking about sleep, nutrition, personal conflicts,
Yep.
all of those things
Yep.
will really reflect, they'll be reflected in your body. And
Oh, for sure. I'm big. I'm a person that has to, if you don't mind me saying this, I have to pay attention to like my body. My body will tell me when things aren't right in other parts of my life. I'm just it's a slow process of realizing this because besides having running injuries, I've actually had a lot of injuries that really came on actually coincided with my career. Like started once it was me realizing I didn't like what I was doing as a PT in the system I was in. And like, I was having these injuries left and right, like neck pain, back pain, like all this stuff. I'm like, I'm a healthy individual. What's going on? And I just know that's my way of needing to be like, okay, what's going on, Kristen? Cause I don't notice things right away. Really, like it doesn't come to my brain right away. It comes to my body. So like, I have to be aware of like, okay, that's your body telling you something isn't right maybe right now in your life.
so that's an amazing connection that many, many people don't make. And that's one of your gifts. You know, you make that so that you make that connection so that you can actually help other people make that connection too. That's part of your coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Well, so that's one of the reasons you can be transparent is because you know you are in touch with your states of stress or non-stress, and
Yeah.
and you realize the importance of it. And so
Yeah.
none of us
Yeah.
are perfect, but perfect strength is perfected in weakness.
Yes. Yes. I have to keep reminding myself, like,
Yeah.
that the low parts, you know, in general and struggles I go on my current injury is where like you actually build up your strength and
What you're
can help
talking
other
about
people.
is not something you learn necessarily through PT training.
No, not at all.
You
No.
don't learn self-awareness. You know, you learn how the joints act as levers and pulleys and different things like that. But
Right.
so you've come about that as part of your own journey. Uh,
Yes. Yeah. And then there's people out there preaching more like, those side of things, but I'm just starting to become more aware myself even because yeah, as I'm going on in my process of, figuring out all my stuff of my past and my future.
yeah, exactly. And so I've been following your injury. You had an injury with your foot for a while, and
Yeah.
and your approach was really pretty good. You were
Mhm.
training only incrementally, only with what you could do. So
Yes.
can you start way back when you noticed that foot injury, and
Yep.
can you uh, can you tell us how you first noticed it and just talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, so I first noticed my injury. It was right after I moved down to Florida recently, but then I came down here knowing I was moving 6 months, 6 weeks later to a new place. So I'd like just moved, and I remember like for the 2 days before it really came out, I was like my heel was kind of hurting, which happens from time to time, right? And then I went out on a run, and it was my first speed day in a long time. It was literally only like a minute fast. That was it, and like by like the first one it was hurting, but by like the third or fourth I was like this is a bad hurt. Like I knew it was like okay because I've been injured before, I've had my heel hurt before. So like that kind of is that's when it happened, and I really didn't think it was going to go on for as long as it did because I caught it early and took time off early. But I mean I just share a little bit of the context. I was moving, I had a lot of other things going on in my life at the time that I feel like must have contributed towards it coming on because it just I was my base wasn't even high. Besides the fact that it was my first speed workout, which might have done it per se, but that's how it first came on. And then I took some time off. I took some time off right away. Like I think I took 1 to 2 weeks off. I forget exactly, and I wish I had it all written down. I do wish on these things, but it doesn't matter. And it felt better, and then try to go back at it again, probably too quickly, but I was just being a little like, it's fine, it's not that big of an injury thinking. And like I did a 3 mile run a couple times and it was too much for it. And it like went right back to where it was. I was like, oh crap, like, oh, okay. Then had to get humble and I asked for help. I had my friend help me, which was really helpful. PT helped me, and we went. She looked at some weaknesses, had me on a good calf strengthening program, which I knew even before the injury I needed to focus on that. Work on toe yoga, get my toes moving better because they don't move well at all. My first ray mobility is awful, and some other strengthening of where I was weak. And then we did a slow progression. In the past when I've had heel pain, I would always like just not run till it didn't hurt anymore, to be honest, because nothing else seemed to work. Or honestly, it was more me not being patient enough, or someone else explaining to me enough of how patient you need to be with this heel pain. And I didn't know, even when I was a PT student, I didn't know. And so this time we went the approach, and this is thanks to my friend, of like, let's load it, but slowly and what you tolerate. So it was a long process of getting back to, I did a run walk program, which was like, you're going to run 1 minute and walk 4 minutes at first, or whatever it was, which is like, okay, here we go. Like barely running today, but I get to run. And then finally got back to 30 minutes of running. And then it was, I think I was on like 2 weeks of, where was it at? Like, yeah, 2 weeks of like, just, maybe a little more than 2 or 3 weeks of just, like I would always go every other day at least, but going out for like, I think I got up to 35 minutes was my longest run, but 35 minutes, very leisurely. You're not following a strict plan at that time. And I was doing well. It was feeling better. The day before it happened, I went on a run, and I was like, what it happened, I'm about to share. Is that okay? Is that cool? I'm just kind of going on with the story. Is that cool?
Yeah, no, I want you to do that. Yeah.
Is that good? Yeah, so I went out for a run. I was like, wow, my heel feels the best it's felt. And I don't think it hurt at all. I think I'm feeling good. And then the next day I had joined a soccer league. Honestly, so it's so funny. Like one of the main reasons like I joined was to like make friends. And I shared before, I grew up playing sports. So like there's a side of me that's really, I love like incorporating what I did in the past: soccer, softball, basketball. So I'm like, okay, like let's be cautious on the heel. I'm gonna go play soccer. I had a sub to catch some minutes for me, and I warmed up really good, which I hadn't even done at my previous games that I had played at. I was like, okay, Kristen, you got to warm up well. We're just gonna test the heel out. I went in for like 15 minutes, maybe it was longer, but I was like, it was actually feeling okay. It was starting to hurt towards the end, and I at one point almost came off the field, and I didn't. I was like, oh, just a little bit longer. As you could probably guess what's going to happen if you know my current injury. So I ended up tearing my plantar fascia. Like, I went after the ball once, went to sprint, one step, pop my plantar fascia, which, if you know, I don't know who all is listening, is, you know, on the bottom of your foot, this really tough fascia that is very hard to tear. It doesn't happen often. Don't be scared. Like, unless you've had really ongoing long-term pain, it can happen. It can happen if you had cortisone shots down there. But it tore. Like, it popped, and I heard a pop. I felt it pop, and pop, my plantar fascia tore, and I was like, oh my goodness, that just happened. I knew it. Of course, there's a little bar of me like, oh, maybe it just really hurts. Like, maybe you didn't tear it. Maybe this is something else. But I was like, Kristen, what else is this? You just tore your plantar fascia. Like, I was just running a second ago, and I can like barely walk off the field. I couldn't walk to my car afterwards either. I like literally had to get it. I was like, I can't wait on it. And I haven't walked since that day normally. So to this date. So yeah, so that's where I'm at. Not that there's more to that, but like, that's what ended up happening. Like, and I mean, like you said, I had a very, and I will agree, and I feel like a very smart progression. Maybe the only thing that, I mean, a little questionable is like, did I need to be going and playing soccer yet? But it was feeling good. It was, you know, yes, did I need to be sprinting? No, I wasn't doing intervals and running. So like, you're going to go do intervals of soccer, but never in a million years did I think that was going to happen, right? Like, I thought worst case, my heel hurts a little bit more after this game, right? Worst case. Nope.
So what can we learn from that? First of all, I got to really, really commend you for sharing your story, and you shared it as it was happening, and for being very incremental and very cautious. And you got up to 30 minutes of pain-free running.
Yeah.
And then we take a diversion into a completely different activity that you weren't used to.
Yes.
So for one thing, that's just great that you were able to, you know, to go ahead and share that story as it happened, because it was inspiring. It inspired people to be cautious, you know, and to
Yes.
look at what's going on and to train incrementally.
Yes.
It's so important. And so where are you at right now? And what would you do different in the future?
Yeah. So right now, so I'll answer that question, then remind me to go back to that question. Right now, I am in a boot. I just got done with, so after it happened, I went like was it like a week, I think, ish, without anything. And then, well, I had crutches. I had to get crutches right away. Had to get crutches. I had a knee scooter. Not that you guys need to know this part of my story, but whatever, I'll start sharing it. I also, through this process, unrelated before this, had this infection on my knee that I didn't know was an infection. I don't know if I should, whatever, I'll just share. I don't even care anymore. I just share stuff. Like, I finally went in the other day. I had a staph infection, unrelated. This was happening before this happened. And I thought it was bug bites. And then once it didn't get better, I went on this knee scooter. Once I injured my knee, it was better, and then it spread. So on top of, I haven't shared this part of the story. There's been a whole other crap going on top of this freaking tear. And before this tear happened, 2 weeks before, I went through a week of insomnia. I've never gone through this before. So, I mean, there's like lots of reasons maybe this happened too, which is a whole story in itself. But anyway, so I had this ish going on over here. And why did I share that? I don't know, because I was talking about my knee scooter. So I couldn't use a knee scooter. I had a crutch, crutching around. And I've never been able to walk before. I've just never been like felt helpless in my own body before. It's been an interesting experience. But I have a lot of PT friends here, and an MD friend. Him and his brother have a business, and PT MD, or he's a DO technically. And he saw me. He was the one that like told me. He was like, "Yeah, you tore it." Like, I mean, I went in. He got diagnostically ultrasounded the next day. Like, yeah, you tore it. And then he recommended doing PRP and fat injection into the tear just because of how bad it was. He recommended like, let's just do this from the get-go to have your best chance of it healing it the best. Because according to him,
Yeah,
go ahead, sorry.
You were seeing an MD at this point. He was an MD.
DO, yeah, DO, yeah. Cash-based, like DO, like went into his, like has a really cool setup, and a friend, and he's, yeah, anyways. And per his recommendation, he's like, yeah, this is a pretty bad tear. Like, yeah, it wasn't a full tear, but I had lots of tears, like definitely something that was brewing too, which I try to give myself grace for, because it definitely, obviously, when it happened, I'm just like, oh my gosh, should have I been playing soccer? Da 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 da. Whatever. Honestly, it might have happened. I had planned to go play basketball with my roommate that weekend. It might have happened there. I live on the beach. I might have went and played volleyball, and it would happen. Like, I'm active, and my heel is feeling better. So like, there's a part of me that's like, yeah, you should have. I guess I'm going to my other question. I know I'm kind of going all around right now answering this question, but there's a part of me that was like, yes, like maybe you shouldn't have been sprinting, because I wasn't ready for sprinting workouts and running. So now I'm going to go cut and sprint. Okay, well, a little questionable. But also there's a part of that to me, at least, the lesson, like, yes, that's a little bit, I'll probably next time, if I had heel pain again, I probably won't play soccer as soon as I did, or any sport. But also there's a part of that is just like, sometimes these things just happen, and we can do everything to prevent it, and it just happens. Like, I really truly believe, like, yes, a little bit, maybe not ready to be back out there, but there's so many different aspects. It's not just all about training. Like, I was out there for my mental health and being there for friends. Like, I'm new to an area, I'm trying to make friends. Yeah. Like, and sometimes things happen in life, and it just happens, and then you go on, and I'm learning lessons from being injured right now, so it's gonna be part of my story. So
I love that, Kristen. I love that. Life has risks.
There we go.
Gotta go live. Yeah.
Like we just live in this bubble all the time, and like, oh well, calculate a risk, shouldn't have been doing that, or shouldn't do that. Like, all right, let's just like not live then, because then we're not, like, I don't know.
We can't avoid every painful thing.
No, we need the painful things, because that's where you learn from. So
exactly, that's what makes us. That's what makes us able to help other people.
Yes, exactly.
And, so you might have a different approach. You might learn something, you might even get a little bit more connected with yourself. But heck, you lived.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yep.
Wonderful. Now, recently, you gave a little webinar on how to be a clinician or coach or whatever that coaches runners.
Yep.
And it was wonderful, because I've seen so many people that have all these smooth, fancy programs that are going to get you to 6 or 7 figures right away. And a lot of them have an element of phoniness. And not everybody is going to get online and make $1 million.
No.
It's not that somebody might not do that, but that's, to me, that's kind of a phony promise.
Yeah.
Now, people do have systems, but they're systems that I probably ethically I wouldn't feel good about participating in sometimes.
Yeah, because the system you're going to be taught by is what they're going to teach you. So, like, yeah.
The labor is worthy of his wages. You were just teaching us how, up to this point, you've evolved into knowing how to make a living doing what you love, and that is a wonderful thing.
Yep.
Here's what I found really awesome about that webinar you gave, is that it was down to earth, it was connected to who you are, it was connected to your evolution, it was so real.
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And I think one in there was you have to believe in yourself. And I think
yes.
So comment on that. Number one, you have to believe in yourself. You have to
do
what you're setting out to do.
You do, like, you really do. I mean, that is the number one thing, and I can even be transparent and share recently, like, I was kind of going through a period of not believing myself, struggling mentally, and I felt it in my business during this time, right? Like, I go down, I don't believe in myself, I'm struggling with self-worth, self-love, whatever you want to call it, my business goes down. So, like, you have to get to that point to figure that out in order for your business to succeed, in my experience, right? I think that's just like the number one thing. It really is, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs will tell you, whether it's that wording or like personal development or any of that, like, that's kind of the number one thing that you end up finding out of the direction of your business is where you are at personally with your relationship with yourself. So
so the first 3 are what really, really spoke to me and kind of got me going a little bit. But I think your sense of self-belief, anyone's sense of self-belief, is reflected in everything, just everything. Every action you take, your business, of course, and,
Yep.
and just how you live.
Mm-hmm.
I think number two was you, in your words, niching down or niching down, whatever.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so that, to me, that's just another example of finding out who you are and what you want to do in more detail.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's a hard one.
Yeah, it's one that a lot of like early entrepreneurs too don't want to, not all, but a lot of people are like, yeah, I've heard that, but I don't want to commit. And honestly, I think I'm just starting to realize like that's just, it is partially true that people don't want to commit to niching down. I know I say niche, whatever. But I think part of it is just there's another barrier for preventing them to do what they want to do, like, to be honest, because it is like, if all business coaches are telling you that, it's true. Like, you need to niche down on who you're going to help. If you try to help everyone, you don't really have a business. Like, who has a business that helps everyone? Like, you can't help everyone. It's not.
If you try to help everyone, you don't know exactly who you are.
Yeah. Then you're not like, you can't help everyone. Then you don't even have a business. I know that sounds weird. Like, obviously there's people that are more broad than others, but your business become known to solving a certain problem. And when you can't solve all the problems, like, you can't become that specialized that you can solve all the problems. Like, if I could solve all the problems in the world, like, no one can do that, So
yeah. If I have a problem, if I have a problem with my tire, I'm going to go to a tire shop. Or
yeah,
if I got a dent in my auto, I'm going to go to an auto body shop or whatever.
exactly.
Yeah. So
why do we think as PTs we gotta do it all? No, you gotta niche down.
no. Yeah. So like going into a store, but they won't tell you what they sell. I just sell everything.
What do you need? We got everything here. Oh, really? Okay, cool.
But the third one was connect, and connect to people.
Yes.
And you're awesome at that too. So those three really spoke to me. The other two were about running plans, and I think the only thing that that's where the rubber meets the road in a sense. If you're going to coach runners,
Yes.
because you have to ask yourself, can I actually do that? But to me, the first three, from my point of view, were so much more important because you can learn to write running plans.
Yes.
And
yes.
the last one was about selling, and I guess I'd phrase that for myself, asking people to pay you for your service, because it's it's just it's a more straightforward thing than a lot of the tricky marketing tools.
Asking people. Yeah, I feel like, what's a good term? Like, sharing, no, because like selling just has like a negative connotation a little bit. So when you talk about that, I mean, which is in a way good to get people used to the fact that it's not a bad thing, but like, is there another word we can getting I mean, really it's just convincing people that they need to make a change in their life is more what selling is, because if they use their product, they're making a change in their life, right? So it's learning how to get a person to the point where they're over the edge to make a change in their life. Probably better use of the term. If we could put that in one word.
Yeah, it's hard to put that in one word. I think you just do that by inspiring and by bringing them along somehow, and then by it's fair to ask for what your services are worth. And sometimes entrepreneurs have a little trouble with that even.
I still do from time to time. I definitely did at the beginning. Like, I'm going to charge them this much. It has literally taken me to get over my money issues. Well, a lot of work, but also it's taken me like almost not being able to pay for things and being like, I have no money, to realize why you have to charge people a certain amount, because it takes a certain amount of time to serve someone. And if you're not charging enough, you personally don't make it. You can't not make it at the expense of others. That's the dumbest thing.
You personally don't make it.
That's not self-love.
No, it's not. And if you personally don't make it, you won't be there to help them.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the biggest things to learn. Or like, so many of us like are ingrained to think we have to come from this helping standpoint, and that means at the expense of us, and that just makes zero sense. Like, it can't be at the expense of you, because then you're not there fully to help them.
Yeah. So you currently still coach runners, or are you going fully into the direction of coaching coaches?
Yeah, so really the past, really like the whole last year, but really, last like 6 months has been more directed towards the route of helping coaches, just because in the same degree, like even, I mean, kind of talking about niching down, like you can't be focusing everywhere, right? So in helping clinicians, I can help more runners by helping more clinicians know how to coach runners, which has been a really hard thing. And I still struggle and go back and forth sometimes. But definitely been more the route I've taken. And my run coaches, like even all along the time, like people that I coach have just kind of come to me anyways, just by having a presence. So I haven't had to, like put it out there as much. But I did recently, I was kind of like, with the pandemic and everything, like, I'm not coaching as many people as I was before the pandemic and stuff. And it's kind of like, oh man, it's so exciting when you have someone do a race, because it's not often anymore. But anyways, with saying that, I just realized I kind of miss it a little bit of doing it as much as I was. So I recently put together a free group for runners where I'm going to give away my course that I have for a couple weeks.
I saw.
Yeah, so I was like, I need to do something. I just had this idea, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna go for it. Like, this is entrepreneurship too. Like, sometimes you have this thought, I'm just gonna do it, see if it works, and give them a strength plan. I'm gonna go live once a week to answer questions people have, and kind of for a passion for me, but also to get connected with people. There's definitely people that commented that I haven't even like heard of. I'm like, oh, cool, this person must be following me and know who I am. So cool.
Yeah. So the end of our process is, I say enjoyment, but the broader real term is joy. What
Yes.
we find joy in and meaning, and that's what you're just doing. You're putting that out there.
Yes.
The webinar that I'm talking about, do you still offer that, or do you have something upcoming that's more evolved?
If anyone is out there who is a physical therapist, dietitian, any personal trainer, coach, just anyone that wants to coach runners and is wondering like, how do I get more clients, how do I do this, I put together this webinar that he's talking about. I had a lot of good feedback. It's my first webinar ever, and it was almost 2 hours. You can catch the part you want, but certainly I have it. I don't like I do have a link, I guess I'll give you, but if anyone wants access, just let me know, reach out. I'll give like my contact information at the end. Certainly I can give you guys access to that. Still available. I am in the works of planning something else coming up too. Can't share on it yet, honestly, partially because I don't have it fully planned or decided what I'm doing. But I will be announcing some more stuff for my clinicians who work with runners. But really, I always have ongoing things going on. So if you're a clinician looking to learn more about how to work with runners, I have that webinar. That's great. I have some other resources too. But otherwise, just reach out and we can chat.
All right. So what would you like our listeners, what would you like to offer them?
Oh man, so many things. Well, I hope you can see, like, I don't know, like being transparent in so many of your lives can be really helpful. I'm gonna go full circle on all this. And I'm really just a big believer in all areas of your life with a degree of groundedness, like going after what you want in life and not being scared to go after that. So like whether that is, I kind of alluded to my goals in running, whether that is in being happy in your life through your career and passion. But I'm a very a person that likes to do that, but there's a side of me that has to, or rely on other people to help me remember this. You got to be grounded too, in the sense of you still got to make a living. It can't just be all, oh, I do what I love and I don't make you got to be able to provide for yourself too. Yes. So I think to that degree, go ahead.
You have to know what people want and need, what really they do want and need, and offer that.
Yes, I mean that's a big part of entrepreneurship too. We get all oh, we have this great idea, and it's not always. You got to be humble and let your ego go, because it's not always going to be what people actually want. A lot of the success in my business has been based off of giving people what they are telling me they want, and what they want, and then it comes with me giving them also what they need. But even I'm sharing on that course I'm giving away to runners. I tried selling it as a course actually in the past, and it didn't go over well. It's honestly, I've had great feedback and stuff. I think it was more on marketing offer side of things, but I'm just sharing that because it's not I created it based off what I thought people needed versus like, you know, once they were done, they told me the best part was like the strengthening is what they needed. So I could have just created this little course on strengthening instead of all this big stuff I put into this, like, you know, so it's also less work on your end too, on the entrepreneur side of things.
So
But
basically what you're saying is you have to be realistically in the process. Both sides.
yes, be realistically in the process, but also go after what you want, or
Yeah,
be relentless and figuring out how you can be realistic at living your dream life.
that's right. That's right. So, so you bring your process and your dreams into our shared reality, and
Yes.
so that's actually what awareness is. Awareness is not only being aware of our inner life, but of our entire environment, and being grounded in that, in both those things. Yeah. So we don't
Yeah,
have either one. So awesome,
I
Chris.
like it.
And where can people get in touch with you?
Yes. So best place is my Instagram. So Kristen, Kristen _ run your life. Best place there. Follow me. You know, if you follow my posts, stories, shoot me a message there. Or my personal Facebook page is Kristen. I just spelt it. Schulz, Schulz. Personal page. Honestly, those are the best places. I do have email. I prefer people getting in touch with me. And you know, Instagram is probably the most natural way, just because, you know, personal Facebook page sometimes feels kind of weird. But those are my best places to get in contact with me. Or I have a podcast too called Breaking Five, a running podcast. Obviously, you can't like talk to me there, but at least you can get to know me, follow other stories of people that I am interviewing in the running, entrepreneur, and PT space. A lot of, you know, I would say this style is kind of similar to Scott's style, and just really wanting to get to know people's life and where they came from to, you know, and the stories of, you know, where they're at in running business and PT has really become what the podcast has evolved into. So feel free to check me out there. And yeah, if I can give you any of the resources we talked about too, I can send that over to you.
Okay, awesome, Kristen. And I really want to thank you for being here today and sharing your process with us, and all the things you've been through, and where you're at and where you're going.
Thank you so much for having me on, Scott. It was awesome. I loved it.
Okay, I had fun too. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here. Okay, now we're not recording.